Okay, let us begin with prayers.
Just one second.
Oh,
Take the live stream.
sorry.
Uh, the live streaming, I will just check it.
Okay.
Um,
Let me know once ready.
ready now. Yes.
Okay. Oh, Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo, Maheshwaraha, Guru Sakshat, Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri, Gurave Namaha, Akhandamandalakaram, Vyaptam Yena Characharam, Tatpadam Darshitam Yena, तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। नमस्ते शारदा देवी काश्मीरपुरवासिनी विद्यादानं करिष्यामि सिद्धिर्भवतु मे सदा। ॐ श्री सद्गुरुदेवाय नमः। All right. So let us begin with the assignment portion. I think Rajita ji's assignment is there. So we can look at hers and evaluate it so that it brings more clarity. I would encourage all of you to do just the assignment because the purpose is not to be correct. Purpose is to collaboratively evaluate it so that everybody gets the clarity and the front end thinking is becoming more and more clear. It's established day by day. Okay, so even if the content is wrong, don't worry about that. We are not assessing this for accuracy or correctness. We are using this as an opportunity to strengthen the front end thinking, okay, and do a collaborative exercise. So let us go through this portion. So Light of the Self Foundation logo portion is there inside an H1. One suggestion here is that usually all these are clickable links. So, although the logo is there, it is clickable. And if you click on the logo, it takes you to the home screen itself. So I would suggest wrapping this inside, an A tag. Okay, so now you have an H1, which is a clickable H1. href equal to something. Okay. Then navigation is good. And there is a primary navigation button here, which is also good. I would say the button actually is also a part of the navigation. It's a call to action, which is a part of the navigation sequence. Let me see if it is appearing everywhere on the pages or not. Yeah, so it is pretty much there throughout the site. I would say, the place for button is also here. Then the hero section which is explore the wonderful, colorful world, wonderful gift, learn more. Okay, so one suggestion here is that although see this font size is big, you know, the way we should look at it, although it uses H1 here, but from a semantic HTML perspective, I would want only one H1 per the page. Okay, so if you want to convey to the users that this is just a logo, but it's not the main heading of the page, okay, then probably what you would want to do is convert this to some sort of an H2 heading. Okay, because then this becomes the topmost header of the page. Like this is the main header of the page. If a screen reader is designed to read out what is this page about and it is going to search an H1 tag into it, then it will say that this page is about a wonderful gift. Does that make sense? So we should try and limit to the minimum possible H1 throughout the page. H2 about program P and button. So this is good. Our offerings. Yeah, our offerings, div is good. I would suggest we would also make them as a uh, list. So that, it is read out as a list of offerings. It's a list of offerings. One more thing I would suggest is, wrapping the main content of the page inside the main tag. So this is where main tag begins and, and it ends before the footer. So if we want to say skip to main content, the main tag would denote the marking beginning and ending of main content. All right. Services is a list. So this is good. Upcoming events. Yeah, right now there are no events here, but if there were events in future, I would want them to be list as well. It's a list of events. Section latest from the blog, article, very good. Meet our team. Yeah. I would also want to, use ULLI here. See, I'll tell you the reason I'm preferring ULLI in some places. Okay, let me show you what is possible with CSS. So let us say I use a UL here and a UL here, right? And convert these into LI. The concept I want to convey is that, content and presentation is different, and presentation can come out in a very different way, even though content is structured in a different way. So for that matter, see, this is looking like LI here, right? List of team members. But here it is appearing visually, it's not a list, right? It's different sections. Now, what would you want to do here in order to do that? So let me say section equal to class equal to team members. Team members UL. List style none. Did you see that the list styling went away?
Yes,
Yes,
Ji.
Kavalji.
So although to a screen reader, it is, a proper list of people, visually the list style is not there. Okay. Now I can also say that just for the sake of demo, you don't worry about the syntaxes here. Did you see that they are all in the one single row now?
Yes, Ji.
So we can do all these things in CSS. CSS has full capability to format your content visually in a way that you want. Okay. But when we are dealing with semantic HTML, we want to ensure that we are not worrying too much about the visual output of this. It's a very, interesting exercise all the time. Even most seasoned developers would, easily get confused here, but it's a very good exercise to keep on doing. So we are separating out the way we are structuring our content and the way it is visible on the page. Clear? So same would go for, say, latest issues. I would want this to be a list. Same would go for testimonials, even though they are in a block quote, that itself is a list of block quotes. So you can also have nesting here, like li. So now this is a list of block quotes. And when you do this, screen reader can also say this is a testimonials section having list of 3 items. Okay. Because it knows that it is a list. And the moment it knows that it is a list, it can know that there are 3 items within a list. Did that make sense?
Yes, Kavalji.
Okay. Here the 12 programs and training, again, that is a list. Although it's appearing here as, separate sections. Clear? This is better structured as a list. So is this thought process making sense, that we want as much meaning possible for the content, irrespective of how it is looking visually? Clear?
Yes, Kavalji.
Okay.
Yes,
I can always format it in whatever way I want. In HTML, it is absolutely possible. CSS, it is absolutely possible to do most weird things ever. Okay. For example, this 7+ years of experience, I want to make it appear somewhere completely different in the document, although it is here. Okay, let me show you that trick. ID equal to experience. See, now this is appearing here. Okay, on the top of the document. It's no
Correct.
longer appearing
In
along
the
with the list of statistics.
statistics.
Okay, but if you look at the HTML, it is there in this list. Clear?
Yes, G.
If I go just visually in the document, then I will see, okay, since this is mapping this way, I can put another item here on the top of the document. But if I think in terms of semantic HTML, then if you know that CSS is very powerful and can do whatever that you want it to do, then it is very much possible to first just worry about semantic HTML and then do whatever you want it to do. Okay, now see, this also makes a lot of difference when you are interacting with something which is AI coding. Okay, now that you know these kind of basics, you can give very specific instructions to AI. Okay, like our bolt, that keep the third list item of experience in the list for screen readers, but use CSS to show it on the top of the page. Okay, it's a very specific instruction. Otherwise, what we would have done without knowing this?
Put it in the
We would have told it,
beginning itself.
yeah, that,
This.
yeah, add this text here. Okay, and it would do that. It would actually go ahead and add, a text here without that context. Clear? Now you can give it very specific instruction that keep the structure same, structure semantic, but still just, use CSS to make it appear in a different way. Clear? You can tell that keep this as a list, but use CSS to make it appear like 3-column layout or a 3-column grid. Keep this as a list, but use CSS to make it look like 3-column by 2-rows grid. Does that make sense? Now the way you will give it instructions is completely different. Earlier you would have said, okay, create this kind of a grid. Okay, now you can say that keep this as a list, but make it look like a grid. Okay, any questions so far? Okay, all right, so let's move on to
One
the,
simple doubt, Dhavalji.
yes.
See, where it was in div tag. Initially, those were in div tags, and you showed it to change it to list, right?
Yeah,
So that we can apply CSS easily.
correct. Yes.
But when we give an ID or define a class, even in div, can we use CSS?
Yeah. Any tags you can use CSS. CSS is applicable everywhere. The only thing that, syntax wise you will have to do is make this as block or a box element. Okay, that is where bolt comes into picture. You don't have to worry too much about all those things. You have to simply say make it look like a box. Okay. You don't have to worry about, all these team members, li. First of all, make this look like list style none. So first of all, don't make it look like a list. Okay. Then you say team members li display block. Block means a box. Okay. And now you are saying this display is a grid, a flex box. That moment, all of them work like a box. So it's not that styles won't apply to li or ul or div. Okay. It is applicable for anything. Did that answer your question, or
Yes,
you
yes,
had?
yes, Dhavalji, yes, Dhavalji.
Okay. Yeah. So
Because I felt using
Hmm.
div is quite complex, and I feel making items list very easy.
No, it's the same. HTML does not care about, you using one way or the other. And pretty much all the possible styling is, applicable to all kind of elements. So this,
Yes.
I give you the extreme example of this one. I can also again give a more extreme example of see, now this single element filled the entire page. Okay, there is a lot of other content below, but this element filled the entire page. So you can see that CSS is super powerful. You don't have to yourself worry about all these concepts. This is where you can specifically say to Bolt that you want this element to go there and, work like this and occupy this much height or width and have this kind of color and all. So this is where Bolt comes into picture. It is very good for doing these kind of tasks, specific instructions.
Okay, Ji. Got it.
Clear? Okay, so let's move to the JavaScript part that we were left with. Let me open that as soon as I can find it. Only if JSBin allows me to use some sort of a title so that it shows properly in the history. Oh yeah, this one. All right. So any questions so far with this kind of functional programming or data structure that we saw, which was array and maps? Which has somehow went away from here. So any questions with respect to array and maps? Arrays are, I think this entire thing did not save our array and map progress. Let me see if there is any other JS bin. No. Okay, so I'll quickly revise that in that case. So if I say const square equal to function which takes in a number n and returns n into n. Okay. First, let me not even go to map. Let me first just wrap up the array and objects portion. So array is pretty clear, right? It's a list of variables. You can have an array which is a number array. You can have an array which is a string array like India, USA. Okay. It's an array of countries. You can have an array which is an array of names. And so on and so forth. You can have an array of any possible variable values, and you can also have a mixed array. JavaScript, you don't have strong typing and strong enforcement. So you can have an array like this as well. Clearly, there is absolutely no enforcement as far as the content of the array is concerned. That is why JavaScript is very powerful at the end of the day. It's very dynamic. Lot of the other languages, are very static in nature. JavaScript is extremely dynamic in nature, which allows you to do some very powerful things. But for that, you need to understand the way it works. Okay. And creation of array and all is also very straightforward. In other languages, you'll have to do a lot of things in order to even start creating an array and working with it. But in case of JavaScript, it's very straightforward. You just create, say, an name equal to the values within the array. Okay. So any questions with respect to array? Have you worked with arrays, all of you? Has anybody not worked with arrays before?
Long back, I don't remember.
Okay. So, but basically, you know the concept of a variable in a language. You have
Yes,
const A equal to 5. So that's a variable.
yeah.
Okay. Const B equal to 6. Okay. So that's a variable. Now, the thing with arrays is that it allows you to store a list of things. Okay. Sometimes you would want to have more things to work with, and at the same time you would want to work with them. So it's more like the list of things. Okay. So usually the things that are paired together in the array are usually relevant and similar things like names or countries. You cannot keep on having multiple variables for multiple similar items. Okay. Rather, at that point of time, you would want to create an array like this. Okay. Now, with this, I can, if I say countries of 0, what will it refer to?
The first element, India.
India. If I say countries of 1, what does it refer to?
Yes.
USA. If I say names of 2,
Bar.
bar. Okay. If I say names dot bars, what does that do? The array becomes bars. It is pushing an element in the array. Okay. If I say names of 4 equal to quirks, what does it do now?
Also pushes.
It also inserts one more element here. So basically it's about list of things. Okay. And it can be a mixed list as well. There is absolutely no enforcement as far as what you want to have in array. It depends on what you want to do with the list, but there is no restriction as such with respect to what you can have in the array. In some other languages, you will have to do a lot of things in order to create this kind of a mixed list or a dynamic list. Okay. Now, another important concept that we discussed last time was that of objects. Okay. So const student is an object. Okay. So here I can say name towel. Okay. Or let me just give more properties so that it becomes easier for you. Last name Trivedi. Age 40. Is enrolled true. Subjects is another array within the object science, math, arts. Okay. You can have a nested object within an object. So if I want to have a complex structure like this, I can say address 13183 SFV, city Bangalore, and things like that. So I can also have a nested object within an object. Now, how will I access these properties? Student.first name. What will it refer to? Student dot last name. Student dot subjects of 0.
Science.
Student dot address dot city.
Bangalore.
Okay. So I can create an object like this. Now, what is the use of such an object? It is used to hold the data of a problem that I'm trying to solve. So what I would want to ensure here, what I should try to ensure?
I didn't understand that.
Sorry?
You want to I didn't understand the question.
I should ensure that this structure maps closely and intuitively to the problem I'm trying to solve. Okay. This is the essence of data structures in computer science. Okay. I should pick and create right data structure for the problem that I'm trying to solve. And it should be intuitive as well, because I'm going to work with this data structure down the line throughout my code. If this is done very well, then I will find that, in my code, this data is easily accessible and well understood. Okay, if I get this data structure right, it will be actually easy to code up a solution. If I get this data structure wrong, then what happens? My code has to work a lot of, it has to do a lot of things in order to fill the gap of that correctness. Okay, if I say, for example, student has to have address here, okay, versus I say student addresses. So, it is very important to pick and create the right data structure for the problem that you're trying to solve. I would spend, say, 50% or 60% of the time worrying about what is the right data structure for the UI and what are the APIs that will be serving that data, rather than worrying too much about the code. Okay, code is something that is easy to generate once you have thought through the problem correctly. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, Dolji.
Yeah, this is very, like our semantic HTML thing, where you think about structure more, and then, use CSS to do whatever that you want on the screen. In the same way, I spend a lot of time in ensuring that this data structure is right. It covers all the aspects of the problem that I'm trying to solve. The, choice of structure is also mapping correctly to the kind of things in the problem. If it's a list of things, then I would use an array. And I would also, collaborate and communicate a lot with the team about this structure. So that you might have seen in our, UI architecture exercise, where we discuss this a lot with Shravanji and all. Okay. So this I would want to definitely get a lot right of any problem I'm trying to solve. Okay. Now let's say I get it wrong, like I was saying. I create an object like this. Okay. And I paste it here. Now, what is the problem I'm introducing here? Can anybody guess what will be the problems?
Actually, this object belongs to the student.
Hmm.
So, but when it is introduced as a separate object, it may not be easy to call it.
Yeah,
See,
exactly. It's not easy to relate. Okay. So even if I have student ID here, 1, and this has a student ID 1. I have to write a lot of code to, check if both of them have the same student ID, and then relate this address and set it to this student address. So whenever I'm browsing the student object and, I have to find out the address of this, I need to look up other places and, figure out whether they are related and things like that. So right data structure is very important. Okay. Getting the data structure right in my professional experience will solve 60 to 70 percent of your problem. Okay, there is a very nice Peter Norvig Sudoku solver challenge. And see, this is another very important part about software engineering in general as well. Okay. Test-driven development. The most popular book that is there for software development that every developer should be aware of? Can anybody guess?
No idea, Davaji.
Any guess? Wild guess? Have you read any book which you think is a good book for software development?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, can you name the book?
I haven't, Davaji.
Okay. So I will tell you the name of the book, okay? The name of the book is called Alice in Wonderland. Okay. What is the
Really,
name of the book?
Davaji?
What is the name of the book?
Alice in Wonderland?
Yeah, Alice in Wonderland. That's one book that every single software developer should read. Okay. Now, what is the concept that that book introduces? Okay. It's very much applicable to any line of thinking. Okay. That book introduces a concept called rabbit hole. You know the concept of rabbit hole?
No, Davaji.
So Alice goes into a rabbit hole and there is a whole new world there, right? She falls into a hole, and there is a whole new world inside that hole. Okay. And she gets tangled in that hole, much like Maya. Okay. And she gets tangled in the Maya. And she tries to solve a lot of problems around that, getting tangled in that. Okay. Without realizing that the very problem that she is trying to solve is actually that she is inside a hole. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
She was trying to solve the problem in the domain of that rabbit world that she was in without actually realizing that she was solving. She has to solve the problem of she being inside a hole and get out of the hole, and that would solve the problem. Okay, so somebody was, trying to implement a Sudoku solver program. Okay, that would solve every Sudoku puzzle. So what happened was that person had a concept of something called test driven development. Have you heard of that term?
Yes.
Test driven development, where you first write tests for
Yes.
your solution and then you develop a solution. Okay, and they got started and they wrote some tests and they selected some framework for writing the tests, and they wrote some other things around that framework, and to address the issues of the framework they had to do some more work and all, and then they tried to solve the Sudoku puzzle using their code within those constraints, and it was not working out well. Okay, and then they had to do a lot of changes in their solution in order to see if it can work, but it did not work. Now there is this person called Peter Norvig, who was at that time the chief scientist at Google. You know what he focused on? He focused on selecting the right data structure first, which will map to the problem of solving a Sudoku puzzle. Okay, he did not get hung up on the idea of test driven development and frameworks that are supposed to be used for test driven development and things like that. That guy did not realize that data structure is the most important part of the problem, and he did everything else to solve the problem, and he could not solve the problem. Does that make sense? versus this Peter Norvig, he did not get caught up in all the other areas of the solution. So the very first thing that he focused on was data structure. Okay, what is the data structure I have to use to solve this problem? Okay, and whether I am solving the right problem to begin with. Clear? This portion is clear?
Yes, Dhaval.
Yes, Ji.
He asked a very simple question, whether I am solving the right problem. The right problem is actually that of selecting the data structure. Okay. Versus that person got totally lost in the world of test-driven development and frameworks related to that and writing tests, and then the tests were failing and he had to change the code to ensure that the tests are passing. But in the first place, the data structure was not selected properly. Okay, so even before we go into the domain of writing code, we would want to largely ensure that the data structure is right. Okay, it's very, very important. Okay, and this is very simple. It's not even coding. It's design. It's discussion between people on what is it that we are trying to solve. You don't have to yourself worry about getting this right. It's a discussion and collaboration exercise. Okay, and now if I want to solve this for multiple students, what I will do? This is a single student.
Array of students.
I will have a list of students, an array of students. Okay, see how JavaScript has so powerfully and quickly allowed you to create a data structure which can map to a real world problem. Clear? Which is intuitively mapping to a real world problem. In other languages, you'll have to create a lot of things in order to represent this kind of data. Here in JavaScript, it is very straightforward. It's also very easy to get it wrong, okay? This dynamism comes with a lot of responsibility. Okay, you have to be very thoughtful. You have to be very, up, your approach has to be very structured. You have to discuss this properly. Okay, even if you get some things wrong here, that means that you will not be able to easily debug that later. Things like that. But at the same time, this is incredibly powerful. Okay, some of the limitations that this approach has are going away with TypeScript that we will take on later. But the essence of the JavaScript data structure is this. Any questions with respect to this? Now, if I say students, zero dot first name, what will you refer to?
Your name, Dhaval.
If this is an array of students like this, okay, students one dot first name. it will be foo. So all clear with respect to the data structures portion?
It's very clear, Devaji.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Now, today I think we have reached our limit. Tomorrow we would want to proceed with map, filter, and reduce, and pure and impure functions. And then there is a surprise for you tomorrow. Okay. It's not related to React, which I have already, announced, but there is another surprise. Okay. Any questions for today?
No, sir.
Devaji.
No,
All
sir.
right. Okay. So the assignment for you now is a CSS assignment. So whatever you've done with respect to the first wireframe that I uploaded, I'll upload it again. I think it was somewhere here, but I'll find it here. Find it again. Let me see if it's here. Yeah, wireframe is here. So what you will have to do is now also style it to make it appear like this. Okay, first you did the exercise of semantic HTML to represent this in a structured way. Now I would want you to style it so it appears like this. Clear? Any
Yes.
questions with respect to the assignment? Okay. See you all tomorrow then. We will close for today. We'll close with a prayer. Om Asatoma Satkamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat. Shri Guru Pyo Namaha. Hari Om.